Oh, hey Alex, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to this because this is an episode that we haven't really explored yet, but is completely relevant to e-commerce, small businesses, or any business, really should say. But first, before we dive in, how do you like your coffee in the morning?
Yeah, I like it black and hot. Like, and
Hardcore, caffeinated.
yeah. Like I usually drink. I can have like Americano, which is like espresso with more water, but I prefer like filter coffee, which is like standard American coffee, I guess. Um, yeah, I drink like a couple of cups of that on the empty stomach. Get
Yeah.
myself caffeinated, and then yeah, I do sports or work for a little bit, and then like I have breakfast only after that. So yeah.
But that was my follow-up question because I say there's been an emerging repeated pattern with entrepreneurs, business owners of the hardcore black coffee in the morning and then no breakfast for actually quite some time. So when does kind of breakfast happen for you?
So I usually wake up like I'm not living in America, so my timing might be a little bit unusual for you. I mean, you usually wake up earlier. Like I wake up like 8 a.m. kind of 8:30 maybe. But then my breakfast is like 11, 12. So I wake up, have some coffee. I usually have sport, either tennis or I go to the gym in the morning, and then after that I come back and yeah, I work maybe for a little bit and then have breakfast. And to be honest, it has nothing to do with the solopreneurship that I do or entrepreneurship that I do, anything like that. I just don't like breakfast when I wake up.
No, it's so some people have come on, some people have gone and said, and it was a very active, conscious decision to do that because they wanted to improve their health. Others have just because being an entrepreneur, we can design our lives how we want to design it, and what works best for us. So similarly, I don't eat breakfast until 11:30, sometimes even between 11:30 and 1, depending on the day and things like that. And that's just because of this life design of how I want to kind of make my day run, so to speak. Things like that.
What time you wake up usually?
At 6:30 or 8:30. It really does depend on the day. So today it was at 8:30 because it's Friday. but there has been a few 6:30s throughout this week, but I get to choose, and that's the whole point on how my body's feeling.
Right.
And it's been we've both had super busy weeks, so I needed that extra sleep so I could have a productive day today, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
So we digress. But so I want to know, Alex, what it is that you do and why do you do it?
I do e-commerce. I'm really passionate about tech and digital, and out of all tech and digital, I feel like e-commerce is the closest thing to earth, like the closest thing to real life. Because if you kind of take a look at the stats, most tech products and digital products, they never go to production, never go live, never see customers. And I worked for a little bit in a digital agency, and I've been there and worked on products that are kind of never going live, and at some point you already know that, but you still work on them. And to be honest, I didn't like that. And I feel like with e-commerce you can be very operational, very close to your customer, and very close to the final product that business is working on, the customer is facing, and I really love that. So for me, like e-commerce is combination of tech, but also real life, real world capitalism, making money, and I think that's a really nice combination that drove me towards commerce.
Most specifically, because this is obviously how we got connected, your job title is Fractional E-Commerce Officer.
Yeah.
Fractional is, it's an American term. It has been slowly going across the world and getting more attention. For people who don't know, what is a Fractional E-Commerce Officer?
So fractional, it really means that I don't work full-time for a single client. That doesn't mean my services are cheaper, because if we compare my time per cost of my time versus cost of time of full-time employee, it may be the same, or even my time might be more expensive. But the reality is that I typically work with small to medium-sized businesses, and what I bring to the table is the expertise. And someone with my expertise, which is 10 years in e-commerce, might not want to work for them full-time, but I do. Even though not full-time, and they can leverage that expertise, and I can be blessed with working with multiple businesses over kind of 1 month, as opposed to working like 10 years in the same company, which I know some people do, and that's totally fine. But my character is more like dynamic, and I really enjoy working with different people, different businesses. So that's that. As for the chief e-commerce officer part, I think that really means that I help businesses do e-commerce better. Really, that's what it is. Yeah.
No, it's perfect. That's perfect, because what we're really going to dive into today is we're going to go through the basics now, but we're really going to get into the advanced stuff that an e-commerce officer brings to the table. So less about the execution that can be done by freelancers. We're talking this really senior level, or that higher level thinking to get a good brand. If the person's listening and you've got a good brand, today is about how to make it a great brand, a iconic brand, to make it so incredibly memorable that a consumer becomes your biggest fan, and that they just shout from the rooftops about your brand. That is the success outcome that we want you to get as a listener from today's podcast. But first, let's get some of the basics down, okay? Like, there's no point trying to be great if you haven't got the foundations there to be springboarding off. So can you spin off a quick list of what are just the foundations and the basics of your e-commerce shop that has to be done before you can go, all right, I want to be a great brand?
Yeah, right. So it really starts at the very basic level. Like, do you have a website? Because sometimes you don't, and sometimes people just run in like Instagram shops or Etsy or Amazon, and they don't have a dedicated website. I guess at some stage that might be fine, but at some stage you really want to own that customer data, because that's the most valuable thing, and you are really missing out when you leverage in platforms like Instagram and Amazon and Etsy, etc. You're missing out on customer data, on owning that relationship with the customer. So the first question is really, really basic, like, do you have a website? If not, make it, please. There are tools like Shopify, which you can spin up really quickly. Shopify is a great platform. I think Shopify is a great fit for really like standard B2C or D2C business model. Like, it's super optimized, performant. It's all around great choice. For something like more custom, like B2B brand, or where you have to support some customer experience, I think things like WordPress and WooCommerce. Even though I know there are a lot of cultural baggage around that product, which is kind of, WordPress is kind of old style and not really cool. But I think from my perspective, as someone who worked in solution design, translating business requirements to technology solutions, I worked there for a long time. And for me, the biggest red flag is when you have a technology in your business that is stopping you from executing on the business model. I think that's the biggest and worst that can happen. And then WordPress eliminate that totally. It much better than Shopify in supporting custom business models, because on Shopify, to rewrite, for example, checkout, you need to go to Shopify Plus. You obviously may not be capable to do that. because of the finance reasons or otherwise. But with WordPress, you can support whatever business model, you can customize your site, whatever you want. And there is no shortage of specialists on the market. So I think that's all around great platform. So you have the website.
I just want to sit on that point, because my brain's just had a light bulb moment go off, and that is so true. If in 2025 now, if you want to be a successful business owner, you have to know tech. You have to keep. And it's funny because I have a one-page business plan, which I help businesses to, align their business with their marketing, with their sales. And in that question, in this business plan is, how are you using the best technology for your business, and that's, I can sometimes separate it to, for your clients, or for your internal processes. Now, if you're listening to this and thinking, but I'm terrible at tech. Great, that's probably because you're the ideas business owner and you're also very essential. But if you're in that position, go and find a partner or somebody you trust and give them the responsibility to say, hey, always use the absolute best technology for my business, so to speak. So that is absolutely prioritized. And I love that you brought both Shopify and WordPress out. I also use both. I use both for different reasons, and this is the whole point. It's understanding your business model, what you're looking to achieve, and then actually what is going to be the best tech to make your vision into reality.
I also want to emphasize that the best tech is not always the fanciest tech on the market. It may be the platform like, for example, Ghost or Substack is the trendiest thing on the market right now, and you might think, okay, I want to launch the newsletter, let me use Ghost. But actually, that's super nerdy platform. I'm not sure that's best for you. So as you said, like, definition of best is far from that technology is coolest on the market. It's more about you and your business needs and how that technology serves your business needs.
Okay, so the basics. So we've got the tech, we've got the website. What are some of the signals, red flags to basically your website's fallen down? It's not working how it should be.
Right. So first things, and I talked a little bit about that with my friend of mine, and he also works in e-commerce as CTO, and he said that his association of the word e-commerce is the word performance. For him, the word performance is the most important word in the e-commerce land, Rome, whatever. And I think performance is about speed, but it is also about like your conversion rate and performance in general, like SEO performance. So I think when you think about performance, think about a couple of things. First, is your site speed enough, fast enough? Is the speed good enough? Like, obviously, in ideal circumstances, most likely your website speed gonna be fine. But then what about holidays? What about sales? What about like Black Friday? What about Cyber Monday? Edge cases, right? And you might think those are edge cases. Let's maybe not consider them when we start, but actually those edge cases like disproportionately impact your bottom line revenue throughout the year. So it's very, very important to design for those worst case scenario edge cases. So that's that. But also like basic things like SEO, like optimization, right? And nowadays, I recently read an article which is about Shopify, and I'm launching the checkout solution for ChatGPT. So essentially, you're going to be able to use ChatGPT, research a product, and buy that directly from ChatGPT using Shopify checkout.
Insane, by the way.
And that only speaks to how SEO even changes. Like you if you are not optimizing for LLMs in modern world, you're missing out. So please do. So as we mentioned, like, do you have a website? Is that website performant? But also, I think another big piece is customer experience. And customer experience is not only the ideal scenario of how customer might behave on your website, but also like edge cases. As I mentioned before, really try to design for those edge cases when client is trying to make a return, when they have a question about the product, how your support works. Like I know clients who have support email and that inbox is never being checked. So because someone like who developed that website put that email there, but actually they don't use that email. So like things like that, like just consider the customer experience, how it works. And you might think that this is like obvious stuff, right? This is being done by everybody, but no, it's not being done by everybody.
Every great person who has been successful have always said it is being able to do the basics very, very well and very, very consistently well. You know,
Right.
And so that's why I wanted to spend just a little bit of time on it. I was like, here's the checklist. Get that checklist together. Make sure, is the site fast? Is the UX? Is it easy to navigate? You know, is the performance there? Are you supporting your customers? Is it easy to purchase? Are you changing with the times of LMN? You know, and how people are actually consuming content and researching your product to find you, and then how easy is it to purchase? How quick is your delivery? You know, this is such a checklist, and if you consistently do well, all of that, 90% of that well every single day, it's half the battle.
Yeah,
it really is half the battle.
No one is saying how long the battle is, but that's half, and then another half might be 20 years. But no, you're right. Joking aside, you're absolutely right. And then I think the last piece, the last step before retention, last step of the conversion of the customer is actually them purchasing the product on the website. So really think about like how easy it is to buy a product off of your website. What typical stuff is what payment methods do you support? Like, is it only MasterCard and Visa and American Express, or maybe not even MasterCard or Visa? And like, is it fine to buy for international customers who maybe travel into the US and want to purchase something, but they don't have credit card that you support? But that's bare minimum. But then Apple Pay, Google Pay, like Klarna, Firm, like all those things, Amazon Pay, Google Pay I already mentioned, but like all those things. And I think there is no, obviously, like, don't be ridiculous, don't put 20 payment methods on your website. But also, like, I would say, whatever the amount of payment methods you currently support, it's not enough. If you think that, hey, maybe I should add one more, yes, please do. You're really gonna benefit from that.
Exactly. If you can get a prospect, a lead, all the way down to them just trying to enter their payment details to send you money, make it so goddamn easy, like, to send you money. If they have to send it like by a carrier pigeon, doesn't matter. Just make sure it's so easy.
Yeah, exactly. Carrier pigeon, like the cash and delivery payment, right? Maybe I don't know, my grandparents, they have credit card, but they're not really comfortable putting that. Like, they can dictate that over the phone, but when they kind of place the order on their computer, maybe cash and delivery is actually a better option for them. Like, just be there with the customer, right? As we say in e-commerce, meet customer where they are, and I think that's really good thing to do. Also, I wanted to say on the tech side of things, typically checkout is one of the most heavy parts of the website, and so it tends to be less performant. So less speed-wise, less performant. So pay attention to the checkout technology state of things, how it is performing, because like as you said, like if you have to, as a customer, if you have to wait like 5 seconds on the checkout before it loads, like you will probably not do that in 2025. So keep attention.
Well, exactly. To give you an example, I was buying some new contact lenses, and I've always gone to the same brand. I've been a repeat customer of them for at least 18 months now, and I tried 4 or 5 of our different cards on their checkout, and not a single one of our cards. Like, I mean, it was like tried an American Express, tried my Visa card, we got a MasterCard. We went through all of the brands. It didn't work, and I was like, well, I need contact lenses because I do a lot of sports. I wear glasses, and
Right.
so then I switched to another brand who offered me the same product that I wanted with the same prescription, and I was able to buy it straight away.
Yeah.
Simple as that was. As basic as that.
And that's what I said in when I said like designing for the edge cases, because my guess is in the best case scenario, it would actually work. Like, it was probably some error or something like that which prevented you, but really they lost the customer, and they shouldn't have. So please pay attention. I think people underestimate how can they improve on the basic things and what low-hanging fruits they have, and they overestimate the power of AI, for example, and how AI-driven commerce can work for them. Like, people pay a lot of attention to like things that kind of will yield like debatable results, but they underestimate the power of basic things.
Mm-hmm. So now we've got the basics down. Obviously, we want to start digging into what is the connection between culture and commerce.
Yeah, right. So that's my my theme right there. I think that we all of us live in capitalistic world, and basically capitalism is about commerce, is about money exchange, is about value exchange. So it's in our core DNA. And actually, I was reading a book about Genghis Khan, and the Mongol Empire was the first the first cultural phenomenon when East and West were connected, and they were connected not through war and conquest of the Mongol Empire, but through trade caravans that went after that. So I think when we really want to make our products resonate with people, we should make them relevant, because and obviously it's not that simple as like it's not that simple, but these headphones, for example, the most basic Apple headphones, actually I noticed that right now they are very trendy with Zoomers, and for some reason they adore them. So that's the example of culture that you as a brand can tap into. So you can build your marketing around that. For example, you can build some creative around that, and that will make your product resonate with particular audience as well. So I think like we all live in that world, and if that world is not represented in the product that you want to sell, you will not sell that. The only way how you're going to sell your product and make your brand resonate is to make it part of the people and a part of the culture.
So before we can dive into some of the examples of, you know, if you've got a product, how do you put that cultural relevancy around it? Just pivot back to Genghis Khan. You know, most people, you know, his narrative, that narrative of that historic figure is very much around war and conquer, and, you know, what is it? There's like a significant part of the world are actually related to him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But what was the other story that's not told so much about the e-commerce? You mentioned they were traveling. It was a connecting of East and West. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, actually, that's you're really right. The picture that we have about any empire, that it is built through the war, but actually, and that's true, but that's the beginning, right? But what makes the empire successful and what made the Mongol Empire successful is that actually if back then you were to interview peoples who live in that empire, they would actually be really happy to be there, because being part of that empire enabled them to do international trades with other nations and with other kind of regions of the world. As I said, like West, were for the first time was able to trade with the East, and that basically built the world how we know it right now. We all, even despite tariffs and stuff like that, we all buy products from China. We all use products from China, right? And they kind of also leverage IPs that are being created in the US, right? The world is connected, and we all live here. But that actually connection was created during the Mongol Empire. So for me, that period of history is really foundational in that regard.
And that really just stems from, well, like you said, it's the start of people mobilization. So because they had the ability to travel, to take their home, through good networks. The Romans were kind of famous for building out incredible roads to increase that people mobility to different lands and areas. There's also like the Mongolians, they also did the same, and that's allowed the merge of the two to come together. Now we live in the internet world, the digital world, and as you said, the whole world works with the whole world.
Yeah.
Obviously some nations are more prevalent and bigger than others, but really, everybody's working with everybody at the same time. And I think it's an incredible thing. It should be absolutely celebrated.
I think the world should be built through commerce and not through war. And that's, I think that's amazing. And when we can do that, we fail as humanity when we cannot. And I think we should all try to leverage that potential of like our human desire to trade and to be connected in that way, and not our human desire to do wars, which we also have, but I think first is much more productive than the last.
Oh, absolutely. It's a deep part of every human's history to, as you put it, to swap one item for another item for an agreed value. Obviously it used to be, I've got a chicken, you've got a goat, let's switch, let's swap, or you've got grain and you've got you've got pelts, let's swap. We have a more sophisticated version of value swapping now, but let's say you, as a business owner, you've created what in your mind is incredible product that you've got value behind it. But they've not got that cultural relevancy. What's the first 3 steps that person should be taking to really getting on this path?
Yeah, I think let's make up the product. Like, let's be more concrete here. So,
love it.
Let's imagine the product. What would be your choice?
What would be my choice? Oh,
let's imagine we are a small business owner and we are creating something. What would we create?
I would probably lean towards coffee or wine. Are usually my two areas.
Let's go with coffee. Actually, exactly. Mine is also. I had a client. Side story here called Berry Brothers and Roth, which is the oldest wine retailer in the UK, and they started as a coffee company. So they've been a coffee company and then wine company. So that's all things are related. But let's go.
Yeah, and there's me thinking. Obviously I'm from England, and I was thinking coffee and wine, they are two things that are not really associated with the UK. I do know there is English wine, but I don't know any English coffee because it's just not the landscape to grow those two items.
Yeah, right. That's not the trademark of the country, right?
Yeah. So let's work with coffee. It's my lifeline.
First thing, as a business owner who is launching like coffee brand, right? So you should really deeply understand the coffee culture in your target market. So for example, you're launching like and sorry, I'm from Ukraine, so I will go with Ukrainian examples, but you are launching coffee in Kiev, which is capital of Ukraine, right? And your market is here. You want to sell your coffee to, let's say, businesses around here. So what would you do? So first you would research the market. You would see like what kind of coffee is popular right now. So maybe there are different kinds of roasts that you can create, right? You can create for espresso, you can create for filter coffee, and maybe filter coffee is much more popular right now. But otherwise, if you want to sell to grocery stores, they are not selling as many filter coffee packages as they sell espresso packages, right? So maybe for them you would create like espresso. So depending on your target audience, and maybe you only want to sell to kind of hipster high-end chains of coffee shops, right? So then your product would be different, would be packaged differently, and maybe your package would not be kind of colorful and stuff like that, but it will be more basic and maybe with some cultural references as well as to what is right now kind of trendy in the culture. Also, like, yeah.
Well, no, you've reminded me of a story, and it actually links back to your Americano from the very start of this podcast.
Yeah.
So, I actually do know the origination of the Americano. Americano started in the World Wars because it was when the American soldiers were coming over to Europe to then fight in the war. Obviously, At this time, the coffee was much stronger because of the Italian influence that had been across a lot of Europe in the espresso or the double espresso.
Right.
And coffee's been in. Again, I know a lot of like the UK relevance. Coffee's been in the UK easily as far back as like the 1500s, even hot chocolate. So it's been around because of those old trade routes and things. But when and it hadn't quite hit into America. So when the Americans then came over through the war, they were like, "Oh, this coffee is so strong."
Yeah.
And they had to then dilute it down, and that's where the Americano actually comes from. And then because that was just like that cultural relevancy fit to how they wanted to consume that product.
Exactly. And again, that's kind of you're getting it. Like it's exactly that. What I'm talking about is that you, as for example, kind of coffee shop in, let's say, France, you know that your audience is being changed from German soldiers to US soldiers, and they love to drink another kind of coffee. So you would probably serve them another kind of coffee. So actually, Americano is the product of cultural relevance, which was created because the kind of as an adoption of existing product to the culture, to the changing culture. And I think like that's exactly that.
Yeah, exactly. And if you ever really want to piss off an Italian, it's ask for a latte after dinner. When actually I'm hoping getting this right, but actually that's a time for a cappuccino. Whereas generally anywhere else in Europe, you would just have a cappuccino, you'd have a latte just as and when you felt like it, you know? Because as it's spread, people have adopted it, that cultural perception of it has changed naturally, its usage. And even again, let's go to the coffee shops in the UK, we actually have such a strong Australian New Zealand merger as well, because of how they've kind of come over and their cafe culture as well as the European culture. So now we have a very strong, what people would coin hipster trend. So if you've got a more premium coffee, which has more ethical sourcing routes, with more eco-friendly packaging, with phrases and words that appeal to that care behind the product, you would actually do very well in the UK, because there is such a big market for between the 25 and 35 year olds who use coffee as an experience, but that wouldn't also work for the boomer generation in who are in like their 60s to in their 70s, who have been brought up with more instant coffee.
Yeah, they're looking for
because
convenience versus like sustainability.
Yeah, exactly. So there's even like there's even a different like breakdowns of different cultures as well under that relevancy. Now, you had a beautiful story that you were telling me about a factory in Ukraine and their bracelet. I think that's also a really beautiful example of how you can do cultural relevancy in commerce.
I even thought like of skipping that story because it's just so like niche. I was not sure if that would resonate with your audience, but if you mention that, I can tell the story if you want.
I think so, because I think every there's lots of people around the world who listen to this podcast, but if a lot in England, a lot in America, a lot in Canada and Australia, and all three English-speaking countries, but the culture is very, very different within each of them, and every single one of these countries will have a different story.
You're right.
The UK one is keep calm and carry on. Huge British campaign narrative that actually went outside of our borders for a little while. I believe into 2018. If I get my media cultural marketing references correct.
Actually, like, you're totally right in that. Actually, like, a little bit of a sidetrack again. I was listening. I'm listening right now. Like when I went to that podcast, to that book by Gary Vee, which is called Day Trading Attention. I think we can paste the art of the book here. That's really like, that's a book about marketing, and I think any marketer may say that book is very basic. It may be for people about it's about marketing for people who don't know about marketing, who are not marketers. But for me, it's very insightful, and I think the message that is in that book is that you as a business owner should know your audience. That is the first step. And I think about cultural relevance, right? I think the key step here is to understand your audience, understand the world that your product is living in, and what market you are in, and serve that market. And that's the starting point. And as you mentioned, like for Ukraine, it might be different stories that you try to tap into. For UK, it might be different. For the US, it might be different. For China, for Taiwan, for Africa, for Egypt, for like all around the world, those stories might be different. But the premise is always the same. Know the market. You should know the market that you are in. And to that regard, I'm actually partnering with a person in the UK. We are building our kind of small agency exactly for that reason, because I think the service that I want to create for my clients, I only am good at understanding the context of Ukraine, for example, but she is really good about the UK and can do the same there. And I think we have that synergy between ourselves, so we create services for international audience as well. But the story that I want to tell is obviously it has it has very sad roots in war between Russia and Ukraine. And the story is that there is, I think, a factory east of Ukraine where the steel was manufactured, a certain kind of steel, and that was and still is. It was functioning, now it still is, but it's not functioning. Huge like
it's not at max capacity anymore. It was working at 80-90 capacity. It's probably like at 20 or 30 now.
Maybe it's not working at all right now, but it was really, really big. It was like I will send you the photo. It's like the whole city of manufacturing, and basically that region was occupied by Russia, and then we have this brand in Ukraine who's doing jewelry, not really expensive, like mass market jewelry, right? And they came up with an idea that they would create the bracelet that you can wear on your hand, and that bracelet will be from the steel which was manufactured on that fabric, right? And like, if you think about value proposition there, you are selling the bracelet with the steel. It's not the best value proposition in the world. Like, it's nothing unique about that. It's super basic. But the fact that this bracelet was from the steel from that factory actually made that product sell out in I think 2 days. Like, and it was super popular. President wore it, like a lot of celebrities bought that bracelet, people collect them and stuff like that. And on the secondary market, it was limited production, but on the secondary market, it worth a lot of money. So and that's just one story which illustrates that yes, those cultural moments, they might be happy, they might be sad, that might be prolonged in the time, they might be very momentarily happening, but tapping into those moments and making your product relevant works, and you should always try to do that as much as possible.
That's why I really love that story, because say if you're looking at your product, it might be selling well at this point, and you're thinking, actually, is there different narratives? Is there different connections? Is there different? What we're talking about is emotion. You know, always the rules of marketing is feelings and emotions first, and then logic and reasoning is secondary. When the person's going through a decision-making process to why they value to buy your product, and you know, essentially within this story, if we break it down, at the end, like you said, at the end of the day, if we look at the logic and the reasoning, it's some bits of metal, bits of fabric, jewelry. Like for example, I'm wearing 2 bracelets, you know, today. One's metal, right. One's piece of fabric. I think cost, well, the metal one's it's a bit expensive, but the fabric one is about $10. You know, super cheap. My value behind it is I actually bought it from a place called Jack's Beach in America. I have a whole ton of friends, memories, good times tied to this one tiny location. So it's almost like I want to carry those little good memories, those good times around with me every single day, and it didn't really cost that huge amount. But so by attaching that emotion to it, to how a person feels, that is what's increasing the value of that product, and I can see why it just flew off the shelf.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And like, it's not like some small jewelry brand in Ukraine, but also like just recently, like Pedro Pascal was in ad for Apple promoting AirPods, right? And that is because Apple understands that Pedro Pascal is on the run right now. Last of Us, Mandalorian, other TV shows, right? And that
they know he's the hottest person around at the moment.
Yeah. And that's kind of them tapping into that cultural relevance of Pedro Pascal and him promoting their products, which, to be honest, I don't think AirPods need more promotion that they currently get in. But anyways, like even like you can see, like even successful brands like Apple, which is most valuable company in the world, promoting one of their most successful products, other than iPhone. I think AirPods is second most successful products that they make through. And if they do that, I think you should too think about like how you promote your brand and make your brand relevant to events and markets that you are in right now.
Because what we're talking about is almost creating your own playbook, creating your own rules for your business. Like it's great to take inspiration, but probably one of the mistakes e-commerce makes, in my opinion, is they say, oh, I see Apple doing stuff with Pedro Pascal. Oh, maybe we need to copy that and we need to do the same thing. But if
Yeah.
that product isn't the right fit with Pedro, then it's not going to have the same impact. Actually, really great example. What's the Australian underwear that's absolutely blown up at the moment because of Rob and the Australian Zoo? It's Rob Irwin. Sorry, there we go. Remember
Yeah.
his full name, Rob Irwin, and that is because it's like it's not a collaboration that you would ever think about, but because Rob Irwin is a national treasure in Australia and it's an Australian
Yeah.
underwear brand, and they really lent into Rob's brand of animals and looking after them and caring with the world. And I believe the underwear also has like a sustainability aspect
Right.
to them as well as that. So from a values perspective, there is so many overlap. And it's the same thing because they know that Rob Irwin is one of the hottest celebrities that's just on this upward trend at the moment. And so
Right.
they are just exploding everywhere.
Yeah.
So we're saying about playing their own game. Like how do you start looking at a brand and saying, actually, what's going to be the right fit for me? And if I lead with Amazon, obviously this is your example, is Amazon's USP. It's the thing why you use Amazon is because it's super quick. You
Yeah.
buy this evening, it'll be there tomorrow morning kind of aspect. And then you see small businesses also trying to do the very quick and
Mm.
fast delivery. Why would trying to offer a super fast delivery, even though it's technically a great customer experience, why would that not necessarily be the right approach for a more medium-sized business?
Yeah. I think just because you will always lose to Amazon in the end, because even if you try really hard for some products and under some conditions you can sustain maybe that experience that Amazon provides, you can support that. But then Amazon has just so much infrastructure and so much money that you will not be able to compete on playing field with them. But what you can do is, as you mentioned, like create your not I wouldn't say like your own brand, like playbook from scratch. Obviously we're still like playing on e-commerce field and we are following some of the rules like fast delivery, but again, not mimicking the greatest brands, or I shouldn't say greatest brand, but not
The
mimicking like
biggest.
not mimicking the biggest brands, right? But making understanding your customer first of all, because like as you said, like when customers shop with Amazon, they come there for convenience, and maybe they don't come for convenience to your website. Maybe they come for something else, maybe for sustainability, maybe for brand selection, maybe for quality. They are sure that they're going to buy from you, they will receive quality. Maybe they come to you for the loyalty program. A lot of things, right? And you should really build that brand strategy not around trying to compete with Amazon or like whatever brand, right? But really trying to understand your customer, what is relevant to them. Again, tap into that cultural relevance that is kind of about them, and trying to serve their needs and meet them where they are. And as you said, not always that is the fastest delivery, but sometimes it is different things. Your goal as a brand owner, as a e-commerce operator, is to understand what are their priorities and serve them really well. And yeah.
There is as an example again, there is a product that I've just purchased at the weekend, which is going to arrive in 23 weeks. Okay, that is terrible, speed of delivery. But let me put some context to why I am actually happy and I'm okay with this and I'm expecting
Yeah,
this. So the product, so it very clearly states it takes 23 weeks to arrive because it is an incredibly niche product in a niche subject, from a niche brand. And it is handcrafted and
right.
handmade by an individual, and that is why I'm buying it, because
Right.
one, it's not a product I can just buy off the shelf. Two, I actually like that it's handcrafted and I like it's handmade and it is from an independent seller. And she clearly set that expectation. She also
Yeah.
said, look, this thing takes 21 weeks, 23 weeks, because that is the value of this
Yeah.
product. And me counting when I actually need it, I'm like, great, I'm in the window. And so I'm buying it. If
Yeah.
it comes after 30 weeks, that's when I'm going to get annoyed,
Yeah.
Which is, that's like such a long
Yeah.
leeway.
It's now when in the game industry they also maybe you remember, maybe you don't. I'm casual gamer myself, so I remember bits of news around that when Cyberpunk was being released. It was released in really terrible technical state, and after that, CD Projekt Red, who is the developer behind this game, said that every other game that we're gonna make, and they made DLC for Cyberpunk game, they said it is gonna be released when it is ready. So they didn't say like exact release date, and it's, as you said, it's all about managing expectations. Maybe like some other studio is capable of keeping the deadline, like Call of Duty, right? Call of Duty comes in a pretty good technical state every single year. Like that's baseline. They have like 5 or 6 studios working on it. Like it's fine. It comes every single year. But then should every other developer in the industry follow that schedule? No, they shouldn't. But they also should set correct expectations. Like the game is ready or being released when it's ready. The product is being shipped when we manufacture it, because it's handmade. I think that's a really good example. And funny enough, I just got called today. I ordered this collector's edition of the Stalker 2, which is the Ukrainian game. And I placed the order in November 2024. It was set to deliver collector's editions with the statuette and steelbook and stuff like that. It was set to deliver this month, but they called me and said, hey, the new delivery date gonna be February 2026. I like, uh, okay, I will keep that. And again, because they sent me the digital code right away, so I was able to play the game. But it take them more time to manufacture the whole package, right? And that's fine because they are setting expectations that this is not going to be delivered immediately, but also they sent digital code to me, so I'm not missing out. Like I'm just patiently waiting for my turn, right? And that's I think that's how small businesses can operate, as you said, setting expectations but delivering on those expectations as well.
I love it. I feel like that's the perfect place to end today's podcast. Just because, like, in my head, I was like, "Well, what's that one piece of advice that a business owner, could take away from today's podcast?" And I think that's a really beautiful example. Is, how are you managing and setting the expectations so that uh, it's an overall, you get an overall great feeling when they are
Yeah.
interacting with you as a brand, on multiple different levels, whether it's feeling, whether it's just the experience, the ease, all of these different factors.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been super, super fun, and looking forward to everybody listening.
Thank you for having me, and it was a pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, till next time. Cheers.